And welcome back, Wrestle Talk Show fans, to part two of The Ghost of Chris Benoit, our segment covering Chris Benoit's father and his allegations, his reports, and what he's obviously looking from WWE. Picking up where part one left off, you remember me talking about um, how he says how Michael Benoit says that WWE still owes Chris money, and that it's his belief, this is all in a detailed report, that um, he believes Linda McMahon's Senate run is just to provide protection from future investigations involving WWE. But you got to think, like I said in part one, the biggest investigation's already out of the bag. We think about it. We know about the steroids. We know about the Percocets. We know about the somas. We know about the endosets. Didn't mean to rhyme there, but I did. Kind of a little bit of drug humor there for you. Um, the fan and everyone outside your average wrestling fan knows about the drug use, how the drugs are used and ignored as long as the wrestler's on top. And it's kind of funny that Chris Benoit's father is the one that maybe it's funny and maybe it's also thinking about it in another sense here a minute. Maybe it's a little eerie. The father of the son who knowingly failed three different drug tests says that the Senate run is going to cover WWE from investigations, and by the way, the company owes me money. But more just that one segment. It's going to protect them from investigations. How much bigger can it get? Everything's already out there. Right now, the thing that's being scrutinized is the classification of wrestlers, whether you call them independent contractors. I myself always called them employees. They should be covered as such. Example, when mm, CWE has waivers because we're just getting started, but we fully intend to cover our workers because as there is risks in professional wrestling, there's risks being taken that don't need to be burdened by anyone. We should be covered, and the wrestler, should something happen to him, also be covered as he or she is performing to make us, the company, money. So spend some of said money and cover the people that pay your bills. Not a not a hard thing to say, obviously a hard thing to do. We've seen that McMahon does not like what's going on. Um, you got to think that both sides have gotten some negative publicity from this, mostly WWE, but I'm not in any way saying it's unfair because no one deserves it more. But you got to think that if Linda didn't run, this wouldn't be as big of an issue, if an issue at all, which is actually kind of scary. But it's the truth. Let's be honest. WWE wasn't going to jump out in front of the bus and say, wait a minute, our wrestlers should pay for health care and we should match them. Our wrestlers should have a classification that fits them so they're protected. No, let's call them independent contractors so we can use them as more or less bait, in, expendable, indisposable, a dime a dozen. You just To Vince, it seems you just insert character onto wrestler and tell wrestler to get out to ring. Kind of caveman talk, but come on. Have we seen anything that wouldn't merit any of this? Somebody please, please, if someone's seen something that contradicts any of this, send it to me. Yell at me. Call me out. But I don't think I'm wrong. So, we get to this point where Chris Benoit dies. Well, he doesn't die. 2007, what's rumored, what the Benoit family wants you to believe is an impulse, more or less an impulse in the brain that all the damage, yada yada, overall caused this snap. And it had nothing to do, it was something in the brain according to the Benoits, but everyone else has signed off on roid rage, which is commonly found in performers, athletes that use steroids or enhancement drugs. Somebody came on to another talk show that I listened to, friends of ours, the PWTorch.com, Pro Wrestling Torch. Someone came on to their show the other night and said, how dare Chris Benoit's father come out with all this stuff? Because his son, the defense was, how dare he, because his son indulged in all the spoils of professional wrestling, and as I've mentioned, and every other caster has mentioned, Chris Benoit failed those 3 drug tests, separate drug tests, because he was the golden boy, the champion of the company. They were getting ratings, they were getting pay-per-view buys, they were getting merchandise sales because of Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit's father is speaking out on the industry and just so happens to have a connection with WWE. So that's his first reference. His son was in WWE, but he wants reform in the business in general. He just can only use WWE from his own personal experience. Chris Benoit, yes, cashed in a lot of WWE paychecks. Should the company, and I said this before this caller even yelled about it, should that mean because you cash in on your job's perks, should that mean that you not be treated and maintained? Now, what I mean by that is Chris Benoit, for 3/4 of his career, was always the little guy. He always had to worry about his size when it came to big matches because it wouldn't sell right if it wasn't sized right. It wouldn't, for storyline and hype purposes, you can't be the tiny guy. Like Rey Mysterio makes it different because he's a high flyer and he's a little guy with a big heart. But that in itself is a tagline within a storyline, within a character. But he always had an issue with size. So it was known that he used the steroids. When he died in 2007, the ratio was 59-1. 59 times the necessary, or 59 times the required amount of steroids was in his system. He was legitimately, the way it was explained is, there was more steroid flowing through him per blood cell than there were blood, But And the company allowed him to fail 3 separate drug tests because he was a star. He was not punished. He was not fined. He was not he was not reformed. Nothing happened yet, so everything was good. Because you cash let me get to the point. Because you cash in on your job's perks, it does not mean there should not be a level of safety in what you do. When you say publicly nay to steroids and then a wrestler dies or commits suicide, the murder suicide, because of the steroids, because of the demands of a business that wants you on top but doesn't want to know how you do it, more or less. Um, there should be a level of responsibility there. They should have complied with their own policy and gotten rid of the steroids. He should have been docked. At that time, the best way to punish the wrestler, he knows he's getting good TV time and exposure. The best way to punish the wrestler on that front without punishing your own product, even if that's the way WWE was looking at it, is fine him an enormous amount of money. Okay, you have an option. We can pull you from TV and suspend you, or you, which would kill the heat you're getting right now, or the attention you're getting right now, and the storyline, and possible profits for us, or you agree to pay $400,000 or something higher to make it so it costs. There's a reason it's called a punishment. So yes, WWE should have got him off the steroids, got him cleaned up. If you had to, maybe create him in a different weight class where, and he wouldn't even, maybe there would have been a big difference, but the Benoit name's been known that as long as he kept a decent figure, I'd like to think with his ability to make a match alone, an edge of your seat kind of thing, that just because he wasn't taking the steroids doesn't mean he still can't perform. Just means that the level and the way he looked would be different. The level of his performance, the grade, so to speak, and his general appearance might change. But he was always able to sell his ability to his ability to wrestle behind his name. Like when you said Chris Benoit, you knew good match. And I think WWE, in my opinion, since you're going to bring it out, kind of, I'd like to think Benoit could have made a name for himself there, and I think the WWE could have, getting into the maintain part, WWE could have seen, okay, this guy isn't doing good. We got to bring it back, but we know we can't do it all at once. We got to scale him back and start to bring him back. They could have got him better over the years that they had him and maintained it, did it like an Undertaker. Do it like an Undertaker, where he works a couple weeks and he's off until you figure out another storyline for him. They could have protected this guy to still be wrestling today. And everyone wants to say it was just the murder. He committed the murder. He's despicable for that. But WWE created Chris Benoit. All this and more at WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. Email your thoughts, suggestions, or comments to cwecompany@gmail.com. Be sure to check us out Facebook and Twitter /CWE Company. And on that note, I bid you good night.